How has your day been so far? Hello, we're AITA Stories, and today we're sharing a brand new original story with you.
Harper Whitman had never been impulsive. Even as a child, she had been the kind of girl who finished her homework early, lined her pencils in a neat row, and asked questions that made adults pause before answering. By her early 30s, that discipline had hardened into something steadier, clarity. Harper knew what she wanted, and more importantly, she knew why she wanted it. That was why she was sitting across from her father now, a slim folder resting between them on the polished table of his home office in Boulder. Thomas Whitman studied her carefully, the way he always did when business was involved. He had built his career on reading people, spotting weaknesses, and measuring risks. Harper, however, was the one person he never felt fully comfortable analyzing. "Are you sure this is what you want?" he asked at last. His voice was calm, not dismissive, but there was a trace of concern beneath it. "You could open something simpler. A cafe, a salon. Those businesses turn over quickly. They're familiar, safe." Harper did not bristle. She had expected the question. In fact, she had rehearsed her answer long before she walked through his door. "That's exactly the problem," she said evenly. "They're everywhere. Every block has a coffee shop. Every strip mall has a beauty salon. But parents keep telling the same story. There's nowhere structured for their kids to go. Nowhere that's both safe and meaningful. A place where children can learn, play, and grow, while parents get even an hour to breathe." She opened the folder and slid it toward him. Thomas glanced down, intending only a quick look. Instead, his attention caught market analysis, safety compliance, staffing projections, program schedules, financial forecasts broken down by quarter. Harper spoke as he read, explaining how the center would function, how it would be staffed, how risks would be managed, and how growth would be paced deliberately rather than rushed. She wasn't selling him a dream. She was presenting a plan. "You've thought this through," he said finally, leaning back. There was pride in his expression now, unguarded and quiet. "More than most people twice your age." "I've been thinking about it since college," Harper replied. "I didn't study finance just to read balance sheets. I wanted to understand how decisions ripple outward, especially when children are involved." Thomas nodded slowly. "I can help you get started," he said. "Connections, initial capital, advice when you ask for it." He held her gaze. "But the work will be yours. Every mistake, every success." "That's exactly what I want," Harper said. When she left his office later that afternoon, the folder tucked back under her arm, she felt neither triumphant nor relieved. What she felt was steady, grounded. She was not building something to impress her father or prove herself to anyone else. She was building something because she believed it needed to exist. And once Harper Whitman decided on a path, she did not wander from it easily. The Family Development and Play Center did not appear overnight. It took shape slowly, deliberately, under Harper Whitman's constant supervision. She started with the location, rejecting several spaces before settling on one that met her standards for safety, accessibility, and light. The building needed wide hallways, secure exits, room for movement, and space that could feel welcoming rather than clinical. Cost mattered, but it was never the deciding factor. Once the lease was signed, the real work began. Harper spent her days meeting with contractors, reviewing permits, and ensuring that every renovation complied with local regulations. She chose equipment herself, researching materials, weight limits, and age-appropriate designs. Nothing was ordered in haste. Every piece had a purpose. Hiring staff proved even more demanding. Harper interviewed dozens of candidates, looking beyond resumes. She wanted patience, attentiveness, and emotional stability. Training took weeks. Safety protocols were drilled until they became instinct. Emergency procedures were rehearsed. Background checks were thorough. Parents would be trusting her with their children. and Harper treated that responsibility as non-negotiable. When the center finally opened, the response was immediate. Parents talked. Schedules filled. Waiting lists formed. Within months, Harper added programs, expanded hours, and introduced weekend activities. A small cafe corner followed, then structured learning zones. Then supervised play modules designed for different developmental stages. The numbers confirmed what she already sensed. The center was not only viable, it was thriving. But success came with a cost Harper had underestimated. She arrived before the doors opened and often stayed long after the last child had gone home. If a staff member was sick, she covered. If a parent had concerns, she listened. If something broke, she handled it. Meals became an afterthought. Sleep came late and never felt deep enough. Her phone stayed on even at night. Gradually, the signs appeared. Weight loss, dark circles under her eyes, a constant tightness between her shoulders. Harper dismissed it as temporary, the natural strain of building something meaningful. She told herself it would ease once the center stabilized. It didn't. By the time she noticed how thin her reflection had become, she was already too tired to be alarmed. She moved through her days on discipline alone, driven by habit rather than energy. The center ran well now. The staff trained and competent, but Harper could not seem to step back. Thomas Whitman noticed before she did. One evening, he stopped by unannounced. He watched her move through the space, efficient but hollowed out, her smile automatic. When she finally sat down, he studied her face in silence. "This isn't sustainable," he said. "I'm fine," Harper replied without conviction. "No," he said gently. "You're burning yourself down." She tried to argue, but he cut her off. He reminded her that even the strongest systems failed under constant strain. That rest was not weakness. That collapse would help no one. "You need to leave," he said. "Not for a weekend. A real vacation. Now." For the first time in months, Harper did not resist. Somewhere beneath the exhaustion, she knew he was right. And though she didn't yet realize it, stepping away from the center would change far more than her health. San Diego felt like another world to Harper Whitman. The air was softer, warmer, carrying the steady scent of salt and sunscreen. Mornings arrived without alarms. Afternoons stretched without deadlines. For the first time in years, Harper woke with nothing demanding her immediate attention, and the absence of urgency felt almost unsettling. She spent the first day doing very little, walking along the beach, sitting beneath a wide umbrella, letting the sun warm her skin while the ocean rolled in with patient rhythm. Her body resisted rest at first, as if waiting for permission. But slowly the tension began to loosen. Her thoughts stopped racing. She breathed more deeply. It was on the second afternoon, stretched out on a lounge chair near the water, that she heard a voice break through her quiet. "Ever tried surfing?" Harper lifted the brim of her hat and looked up. The man standing beside her was tan, relaxed, and smiling with the kind of ease that came from spending most of his life outdoors. He wasn't intrusive, just open, confident in a way that felt natural rather than practiced. "I can barely stand upright right now," she replied, a faint smile touching her lips. "That's what everyone says," he laughed. "I'm Ryan." He gestured toward the water, explaining that he worked as a fitness and surf instructor at the resort. His tone was light, playful, free of expectation. Harper found herself responding in kind, surprised by how easily the conversation flowed. She agreed to a lesson more out of curiosity than confidence. Ryan proved patient and encouraging, guiding her through the basics with steady hands and good humor. She fell more than once, laughing despite herself as the water swallowed her attempts. Each time, he helped her back up, never rushed, never critical. By the end of the session, she was exhausted and exhilarated. "You see," he said, "you just needed someone to slow you down." They met again the next day, and the next. Between lessons they talked. About travel, about work, about nothing important at all. Ryan listened in a way that felt rare, focused entirely on her when she spoke. Harper found herself talking about things she usually kept guarded. How long it had been since she'd taken a real break. How responsibility had slowly consumed her life. Ryan responded not with advice, but with presence. He brought spontaneity into her days, impromptu walks along the shore, music drifting from beachside cafes, dinners that stretched late into the evening. Harper realized how little attention she had allowed herself to receive in recent years, how accustomed she had become to standing alone at the center of everything. With Ryan, she didn't have to lead. The connection intensified quickly, fueled by sun proximity and the rare freedom of anonymity. Harper knew it was fast. She knew vacation romances thrived on illusion, but exhaustion had left her vulnerable, and Ryan's warmth felt like relief. By the end of the week, the idea of leaving felt heavier than she expected. What Harper did not recognize then was that she wasn't falling in love with Ryan alone. She was falling in love with the version of herself she became beside him, unburdened, seen and momentarily free. Harper Whitman returned to Boulder with sand still clinging to her shoes and a quiet certainty she had not felt before. Ryan Cooper came with her, carrying little more than a suitcase and an easy confidence that made the transition seem effortless. Within weeks, what had begun as a vacation romance solidified into something far more permanent. They married quickly. There were no elaborate plans, no long engagement. Friends called it impulsive. Harper called it clarity. After years of making careful, calculated decisions, she believed she had earned the right to choose something that felt right without dissecting it to pieces. At first, it worked. Ryan found a position as a fitness trainer at a local gym. The work suited him, structured enough to provide income, flexible enough to preserve his sense of freedom. He came home energized, full of stories about clients and routines, his charm intact. Harper returned to her center with renewed focus, expanding programs, refining systems, and setting long-term goals that extended years ahead. Their early life together settled into an easy rhythm. Dinners were shared. Evenings were calm. Weekends passed without tension. Harper felt anchored, reassured by the presence of someone waiting for her at home. But beneath that surface calm, the balance began to tilt. Harper continued to grow. The center expanded, adding new programs and increasing staff. Her role shifted from hands-on management to strategic oversight. She learned to delegate, to think several steps ahead, to lead with quiet authority. Responsibility sharpened her, gave her a steadier confidence. Ryan, by contrast, stayed where he was. His workdays remained much the same. He trained clients, repeated routines, accepted praise easily but rarely sought advancement. Harper noticed that when she spoke about long-term planning, he listened politely but without real engagement. He didn't resist her success, but he didn't match its pace either. At first, she dismissed the difference as personality. Not everyone measured fulfillment the same way, but small moments began to accumulate, conversations that stalled, decisions Harper made alone, silences Ryan filled with humor rather than substance. Around this time, Melissa Grant appeared more frequently. Melissa had been Harper's friend since college, present through early struggles and first achievements. She visited often now, lingering in the kitchen, commenting on Harper's schedule, Ryan's work, the center's success. Her remarks were casual, almost joking, but something sharp edged their tone. "You really built all this yourself," Melissa said once, glancing around their home. "Must be nice to have everything so secure." Another time she laughed and added, "If I had your opportunities, I'd have done even more." Harper smiled, brushing it aside. She had known Melissa long enough to recognize restlessness when she heard it. What she didn't yet see was how closely Melissa watched Ryan, or how easily admiration slipped into something quieter, more dangerous, The changes did not arrive all at once. At first, Harper Whitman noticed them only as inconveniences, small disruptions in an otherwise stable routine. Ryan began coming home later than usual, often well past the hour they once shared dinner. When she asked, his answers came easily. Private clients, last-minute sessions, extra requests he couldn't turn down. Harper accepted the explanations without challenge. She was used to irregular hours herself, used to trusting that adults manage their own responsibilities. If anything, she blamed her own workload for not being more attentive. But patterns have a way of forming even when no one is looking for them. Ryan's phone stayed face down more often. He stepped outside to take calls. He showered the moment he came home, as if eager to wash the day away. None of it was dramatic. None of it, on its own, felt like proof. The first tangible sign came one evening when Harper reached into the pocket of his jacket to move it aside. Her fingers brushed against something small and unfamiliar. A lipstick, not a shade she owned. Alongside it, 2 movie tickets, their stubs torn neatly in half. She sat still for a long moment, the objects resting in her palm. Her first instinct was not anger, but disbelief. She tried to assemble harmless explanations, to tell herself there must be one. But no explanation arrived that fit cleanly. She placed everything back exactly where she found it. Days later, an email appeared in her inbox from an address she didn't recognize. There was no message, only a single attachment. Harper opened it late in the evening, after the center had quieted and the cafe lights were dimmed. She sat alone at the bar, a cup of untouched coffee growing cold beside her. The video loaded slowly, each second stretching longer than the last. Ryan filled the frame almost immediately. He was laughing, relaxed in a way Harper had not seen in months. A woman stood close to him, her face partially obscured, her body angled away from the camera. The setting was unmistakable, a hotel room. The intimacy between them required no interpretation. It was casual, familiar, undeniable. Harper did not stop the video. She watched until the end, her expression unchanged, her breathing steady. When the screen finally went dark, she set the phone down and rested her hands flat on the counter. There was no scream, no tears, no impulse to confront him immediately. Instead, a quiet heaviness settled in her chest, pressing down with unexpected force. It wasn't only the betrayal that hurt. It was the clarity, the realization that something she had trusted had been unraveling for longer than she allowed herself to see. Harper closed her eyes and leaned forward, lowering her forehead to her hands. Around her, the center remained silent and orderly, just as she had built it. For the first time since opening its doors, she felt utterly alone within it. Harper did not notice Andrew Lawson at first, not in any meaningful way. He had been coming to the Family Development and Play Center for months, always on weekends, always with his young son. He was polite, reserved, the kind of parent who stayed close but never hovered. While other adults scrolled through their phones or chatted idly, Andrew watched. He noticed how the staff interacted with the children, how the rooms were kept, how Harper moved through the space. That morning, Harper was standing behind the cafe counter, staring at nothing in particular when she sensed someone nearby. "Is everything all right?" a calm voice asked. She looked up and saw Andrew standing a respectful distance away. His expression was neutral, but his eyes were attentive. There was no curiosity in them, only concern. "I'm fine," Harper replied automatically. Andrew didn't argue. He simply waited. The silence stretched, gentle but firm, until the words slipped out of her before she could stop them. "My husband is cheating on me." The admission surprised them both. Andrew nodded slowly, as if she had confirmed something he already suspected. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know how that feels." Harper hesitated, then studied him more closely. Up close, he seemed older than she had thought, not in years, but in experience. There was a steadiness to him that felt earned. They moved to a quieter corner of the cafe. Harper spoke, briefly, without details, without emotion. Andrew listened without interruption. When she finished, he exhaled softly. "My wife left," he said. "She couldn't live with the uncertainty. I worked cases that didn't come with guarantees. One day, she decided she needed something safer. Someone safer." Harper absorbed that in silence. "I used to be a criminal investigator," Andrew continued. "Major cases. Long hours. High stakes." He paused. "I left the force. Now I run a private investigation firm. Smaller scope. Clearer boundaries." That explained the way he observed the world, Harper realized. The way he noticed what others overlooked. She laughed once, quietly. "Of course you do." Andrew's mouth curved slightly, but his tone remained serious. "If you want, I can help you understand what's really happening. Not to punish him. Not to make things worse. Just to know the truth." Harper considered the offer. She thought of the video, of the lipstick, of the ease with which Ryan had lied. What frightened her most was not what she already knew, but what she didn't. "What would that involve?" she asked. "Patience," Andrew said. "Observation. And one honest test." He explained his idea carefully. Not a confrontation. Not accusations. A shift in circumstances, financial pressure that would force Ryan to show where his loyalty truly lay. Harper listened without interrupting. When he finished, she didn't answer right away. She stared out across the center, watching children laugh and run, unaware of the adult complexities surrounding them. "I don't want revenge," she said finally. "Neither do I," Andrew replied. "I want clarity." For the first time since opening the email, Harper felt something loosen inside her, not hope exactly, but direction. Harper chose her moment carefully. She waited until the house was quiet, the dishes cleared, the day already easing into night. Ryan sat on the couch, scrolling absently through his phone. His posture relaxed in the way it always was when he believed nothing was required of him. Harper stood a few feet away, steadying her voice before she spoke. "I heard back from an attorney today," she said, "about my uncle on my mother's side. He passed away." Ryan looked up, interest flickering across his face. "I didn't know you were close." "We weren't," Harper replied. "That's part of the problem." She explained it slowly as Andrew had advised. "The inheritance existed," she said, "but it wasn't the kind anyone hoped for. There was a property involved, old and nearly worthless. Along with it came loans, unpaid taxes, and debts that far exceeded anything the house could cover. By law, the obligations transferred with the estate." Ryan's expression shifted almost immediately. At first, he asked questions, Harper continued evenly. "How much debt? How fast would it have to be paid? Were there other heirs?" His tone was no longer casual. It was sharp, calculating. She told him there were none. That was when the distance appeared. Ryan leaned back, rubbing his hands together, his jaw tight. He said very little after that. When he did speak, his words came clipped, distracted. He paced the living room, muttering under his breath, then disappeared into the bedroom under the pretense of needing space to think. Harper followed none of it. She stayed where she was, watching. Later that night, long after Ryan believed she had fallen asleep, Harper heard him move. She remained still as he slipped out of bed, the floorboards creaking softly beneath his weight. A moment later, the muted sound of his voice reached her from the hallway. He was whispering, urgent, pacing as he spoke. She caught fragments. "No, not yet. It's bad. I don't know what to do." Harper did not open her eyes. She did not confront him. She listened until the call ended and his footsteps faded back into the bedroom. In the morning, Ryan was different. He was polite, overly so. He avoided her gaze. He offered to make coffee but barely touched his own cup. His affection felt mechanical, as if rehearsed. Harper noticed how often he checked his phone. how his attention fractured whenever finances were mentioned. The change was undeniable. By evening, Harper understood what the lie had revealed. It was not fear that unsettled her most. It was the speed with which Ryan's concern shifted away from her and toward himself. The moment security vanished, so did his ease. The moment risk appeared, his loyalty wavered. She moved through the house quietly, observing without comment, absorbing every reaction. The realization settled slowly but firmly. What Ryan loved was stability, not partnership. Comfort, not commitment. Harper did not feel anger then. What she felt was clarity, and with it came the knowledge that the test had already begun to work. Ryan did not wait long. The morning after another restless night, he approached Harper with a seriousness she had not seen before. He spoke calmly, deliberately, as if the idea had been carefully polished. "I've been thinking," he said, setting his coffee mug down. "If creditors come after you, they'll take everything in your name. The center, the apartment, the accounts." He paused, watching her closely. "But if it's all in my name, they can't touch you." Harper listened without interruption. "It's just temporary," Ryan continued. "Once this mess is over, we can change it back. This is about protecting you." The phrasing was perfect. Concern layered over control. Harper lowered her eyes and nodded slowly. Letting a breath, she had prepared escape at just the right moment. "If you think that's best," she said. "I don't know much about this." Ryan relaxed, almost visibly. Relief softened his posture. "I'll handle it," he said. "I already found a notary. We can do everything properly." That afternoon, the doorbell rang. The notary introduced himself professionally, credentials presented without flourish. He explained the process clearly, methodically, outlining each document and its purpose. Harper sat across from Ryan at the table, shoulders slightly rounded, hands folded in her lap, playing the part she had chosen with care. The paperwork was extensive. Property titles, business interests, asset declarations. The notary reviewed each page aloud, ensuring transparency, asking if there were any questions. Harper asked none. When it was time for her to sign, she did so slowly, deliberately, her name steady on each page. Ryan watched, barely containing his impatience. When the documents slid toward him, he barely glanced at them before adding his signature where indicated, confident and hurried. The notary gathered the papers, checked them once more, and nodded. "That completes the transfer." Ryan leaned back, exhaling sharply, a satisfied smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. He reached into a folder he had kept close and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "There's one more thing," he said. Harper looked at it. "Divorce papers." "I want to make this clean," Ryan continued, his voice cool now, stripped of pretense. "No complications. No dragging things out. This way. Everything stays clear." The room felt suddenly smaller. Harper glanced at the notary, who met her gaze briefly and gave the slightest nod. She understood. "You're sure?" she asked Ryan quietly. "I'm done," he said with a shrug. "I'm not risking my future over someone else's debts." There it was, unfiltered, final. Harper signed. Ryan's expression hardened as he collected the papers. "You can stay here for a while," he added casually, "until you figure out where you're going. Or you could go stay with your father. He'll manage." He stood, already turning away. Harper gathered her things calmly, her movements unhurried. She did not argue. She did not plead. When she left the house, the notary walked beside her, silent. Only once the door closed behind them did the weight of what had just happened settle fully into place. What Ryan believed was a clever escape had sealed something far more permanent. The consequences were no longer theoretical. They were written, signed, and irrevocable. Ryan arrived at the Family Development and Play Center early the next morning, earlier than he ever had when Harper still ran it openly. Melissa Grant walked beside him, her hand looped possessively through his arm, her gaze sweeping the space as if she were already assessing its resale value. At the front desk, security hesitated. Ryan brushed past without slowing. "Gather everyone," he said sharply. "I have an announcement." Staff members exchanged confused looks, but complied. Within minutes, teachers, supervisors, and cafe employees stood clustered in the main area, murmuring quietly among themselves. Ryan stepped forward, his posture rigid with importance, a thick folder tucked under his arm. "As of today," he announced, "I am the owner of the center, and I've decided it's time to sell. Operations will be shut down. You'll all be notified about next steps." The room fell silent. Before anyone could speak, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Harper appeared at the far end of the space, a cup of coffee in her hand, her expression unreadable. She walked toward the group at an unhurried pace, stopping beside Ryan as if this were any ordinary morning. "What's going on here?" she asked calmly. Ryan turned, startled. "What are you doing here?" His voice sharpened. "This isn't your concern anymore." Harper glanced at the folder under his arm. "Is that the paperwork you think gives you ownership?" Ryan held it up. "These documents are legal. Signed. Final." Harper reached out and took the folder from him before he could react. She opened it and flipped through the pages slowly, deliberately, allowing the silence to stretch. "You didn't read what you signed," she said evenly. Ryan frowned. "That's not possible." Harper looked up, her gaze steady. "You signed a voluntary waiver of all marital claims to my assets, including the business, including the property, including every account connected to the center." Murmurs rippled through the room. Ryan shook his head. "That's not what it said." "That's exactly what it said," Harper replied. "You transferred nothing to yourself. You only gave up your rights." Melissa stepped forward abruptly. "You told me we were set," she snapped at Ryan. "You said everything was secured." Harper turned her attention to Melissa for the first time. "You might want to read the fine print too," she said coolly. Melissa's face tightened. "This doesn't matter," she said. "Ryan owns this place now, and we're having a child." The words landed heavily. Ryan froze. Harper inclined her head slightly. "Congratulations," she said. "I hope you're both prepared, because there's nothing here to support you." Melissa stared at Ryan, disbelief turning rapidly into fury. "You said I thought," Ryan began, then stopped, his voice faltering as the truth finally sank in. Laughter broke out, hesitant at first, then louder, rolling through the space as the absurdity became clear. Staff members looked at one another, relief and disbelief mingling freely. Ryan stood motionless, his authority evaporating in real time. Harper closed the folder and handed it back to him. "You should leave," she said. "Both of you." Melissa struck Ryan's arm in frustration, her anger spilling over as they turned toward the exit. They left under the weight of watching eyes, their humiliation complete and irreversible. Harper remained where she was, the center settling back into its familiar rhythm around her. For Ryan, everything ended in that moment. For Harper, it was only the beginning of something quieter and far more lasting. The consequences reached Ryan quickly. Within weeks, his reputation unraveled. Word traveled fast through the tight network of gyms and training studios. Clients stopped booking sessions. Management asked questions. The circumstances of his separation, once private, became difficult to ignore. By the time his contract ended, no one was rushing to offer him another position. The charm that once carried him forward now worked against him. Harper Whitman watched none of it closely. When her father suggested using his influence to push harder, she declined. What had needed to be said had already been said. What needed to happen had already happened. She felt no desire to extend the damage further. Justice, to her, no longer meant punishment. It meant distance. Life settled into a quieter pattern. Andrew Lawson became part of her days in ways neither of them rushed to define. He stopped by the center during the week, not only on weekends. Conversations lingered. Shared meals became routine. His son began running toward Harper when he arrived, waving from across the room as if she were already expected. The center continued to grow, but Harper no longer tried to control every detail. She trusted her team. She trusted herself. Evenings came with rest now, not exhaustion. Her home felt calm, grounded, honest. 2 years passed. One afternoon, while shopping for groceries, Harper noticed raised voices near the checkout. Ryan stood a few aisles away, arguing with Melissa. Their clothes were worn, their words sharp. Frustration clung to them openly. For a moment, Ryan looked up and recognized her. Harper met his gaze briefly. She did not smile. She did not frown. She simply nodded once, as she might to a stranger, and turned away. In seconds, he was behind her again, unremarkable, distant, finished. Outside, sunlight caught the cart as Harper pushed it toward her car. Her phone vibrated with a message from Andrew, asking if she needed anything else. She replied no, then paused, adding that she would be home soon. What remained after everything had fallen away was not bitterness nor triumph. It was clarity. Betrayal had revealed character. Silence had proven stronger than confrontation. And true security, Harper had learned, did not come from control or appearances, but from boundaries clearly drawn and quietly kept. If you've listened this far, take a moment to ask yourself, where would you have drawn the line? And what would you have chosen to protect, your pride or your peace? Share your thoughts. Sometimes quiet strength speaks loudest when it's finally named.